more than 250,000 borrowers, or 8% of borrowers in 2022, owe more on their home now than it's worth. So that's roughly 1 million have less than 10% equity. So this is adding to that challenge that we were just talking about. The appreciation's not nearly where it was a year ago, 2 years ago. And housing prices have seen, almost zero appreciation over the past several months. So how do you see that impacting future markets or that looming recession that we keep talking about?
There are always there are always headlines, and I'm always skeptical about headlines. For example, if I have 2 dogs and I get another dog, the headline would be Rob Chrisman, increases dog population by 50%.
Yeah.
Going from 2 to 3, up 50%. Oh my gosh, 50% dog appreciation. When you look at the housing market, it's important for people to remember that we are dealing with the homing market rather than the housing market. We can look at the statistics all we want, but if you have a new family and they are in a house, which becomes a home, not that it doesn't matter what happens to the price of that home while they're there. They know that they're in a good school district. They know they have a good commute to work, or they have a little home office they can work from there. They know they like their neighbors, their potlucks, once a month in the neighborhood. The stores are nearby, the banks are nearby, whatever. They're in it. Their parents live nearby. They're at the end of a cul-de-sac, whatever it is. They aren't sitting there typically saying, oh my gosh, last month our house value went down 0.5% or it went up 0.5%. They know that they like where they live and that's their home. And so I think that fact is forgotten a lot in the mainstream press. And yeah, you see nationwide trends about different markets doing different things, in the high end and the low end in different regions, the West versus the Southeast versus the Northwest, whatever it might be. There's a lot of trends that the press likes to report on, but through it all, when you get down into the weeds, you're dealing with people and with families, and they may not care so much about that. So you have a situation where there's a lot of numbers out there, a lot of housing gauges, a lot of almost instantaneous housing gauges by companies like Zillow or Redfin and so forth, which may or may not be indicative of the marketplace. But it comes back to people need a place to live, and the housing. I don't think we are anywhere near a position where we were in 2008, 2009.
I was just going to ask you about how you thought this compared to that time period.
Right. Yeah. Back then, the loan programs that were being offered and the investors buying pools of loans with those loan programs. Right. I mean, it was not a great position to be in. Stated this, stated income, stated asset, all kinds of things going on. Now, when you talk to underwriters or capital markets people or investors and so forth, they will argue that the loans that have been produced over the last several years are to some of the most creditworthy borrowers ever in the history of mortgage lending. Not only that, but anybody who bought a house prior to a couple of years ago has seen a tremendous amount of appreciation. So you have creditworthy borrowers in a house that has equity. Right. That's not going anywhere. That's still out there. And so no one's asking me about a tidal wave of foreclosures like they were, 15 years ago. Right. They are looking at this saying, wow, the housing market is pretty stable. And there's always be little chinks in the armor in terms of, oh my gosh, what about this and what about that? Foreclosures went from, 100 to 200 nationwide. I'm just making that number up.
Right.
But you have to keep things in context about how many housing units there are and what are the numbers doing in terms of, the Chrisman dog population went from 2 to 3, so it's up 50%. Well, that's 50%. Wow. Well, it only went from 2 to 3.
Right.
You have to look beyond just the percentages and look at what's going on under the numbers, as it were. So, there's been talk about a recession for months and months. The housing market, is going to do what it's due. The employment picture looks pretty strong right now. People have jobs. Unemployment is 3.5 or 3 something.
Yeah, 3.5%.
It's very, very low. And so people are out there, they have jobs, there's stability. Their spending is slowing down a little bit because when we came out of the pandemic, a lot of people wanted to go to Disneyland and so on.